Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the annual Cottonwood Classical Preparatory School Prospective Student and Family Information Night. So the focus this evening is to help everybody learn a little bit about our school. We normally would do this in person and do tours on the same night and over 3 nights in late January. But this year, in order to prevent large crowds, we're going to try this one virtual evening with a recording of this session on YouTube. And then we have the small group tours that you can sign up for on our website. Sign up soon because the first couple Fridays are already filled up. So make sure that you get signed up for that. So what are we doing tonight? Well, we're going to talk about the history of Cottonwood, the core mission, what it looks like on a typical day, and what things look like in the near future with our priorities as an organization and one of the preeminent educational institutions in the state of New Mexico. We'll talk about the application process and the lottery, and then we'll answer all the questions that you have. So for questions, there are two things to do. One is to make sure that you're posting your questions in the chat on YouTube. Some of them will be answered as we go, and then others we will hold on to for the end of the evening at about 7:30, where it'll be a little bit more informal and we can answer things verbally. But you can post your questions in the chat at any point in time. We have a couple people that will respond to you depending on the nature of your question. All right. So Cottonwood Classical Preparatory School, founded in 2006, and it opened in August of 2008 on the Unser Racing Museum campus over on Montano Boulevard. And at the time, it had 121 students and 8 teachers in grades 6 through 10. And it pretty quickly expanded year over year. So by the third year, there were 370 students and a pretty big wait list, and it's only grown since that time. In 2013, the school opened at its new campus on Jefferson Northeast in the Journal Center. We now have 756 students in grades 6 through 12 and about 70 staff members. So quite a bit larger than we were in those first couple of years. The founders of the school, the two Lyns, Lynn Barr and Lynn Carey, they are both veteran educators, lifelong career-focused teachers. They wanted to create the first public IB World School in New Mexico and offer the diploma program. And we'll talk about what that means in a moment. They also wanted to make sure that they were producing engaged citizens and providing an educational environment that would rival the private schools at the time to ensure that we were giving the best possible education for the students of Albuquerque. The Paideia method is something that we use as our core pedagogy. It's used in grades 6 through 12 and a lot of emphasis on learning the skills of Paideia in 6 through 10. This is where the classical terminology comes from in the name Cottonwood Classical Preparatory School. It's grounded in hundreds of years of educational research and what we know works with keeping students engaged. It fits in pretty well with the IB approaches to teaching and learning. So a typical class at Cottonwood has very little lecture, and we've had to make a few modifications to this in COVID times and remote time, but what we strive for is to have the teacher talking less and the students engaged more with the teacher kind of walking around the room. Sage on the stage is a common phrase for this, but it takes a real craftsman to do teaching and learning this way. So a little bit of lecture, and then depending on the subject area, 40 to 70%, a big chunk of intellectual coaching and coached projects. So you can think like a room where students are working individually or in small groups. The teacher is walking around, asking good questions, doing formative assessment throughout. And students are engaged with each other, constructing learning, constructing meaning. And then the teacher's job is to make sure that the objective for the day is met. And there's a way to assess that. And then seminars are sort of like a crown jewel of this program. Students lovingly call them Socratics. And the idea with a seminar is that students get together with the teacher, they've read a text or they've been exposed to a common artifact. It could be a propagandist cartoon from World War II. It could be different perspectives on the Battle of Little Bighorn. It could be a treatise on some sort of mathematical theory. Um, every subject area has some amount of seminar work that happens, and it just varies a little bit by subject area. So, you can read this about the Paideia method in Socratic seminaries. It comes up, but it's meant to really thoughtfully and thoroughly engage students in interpretive questions and forming their own evaluative sentiments around a particular topic, big idea, essential question, common theme, and it can lead into various different artifacts that they can create, whether it be an essay or some sort of a reflective exercise or a project, and so that they're always examining multiple perspectives on a particular lens or artifact. And then we're an IB World School. So IB is International Baccalaureate. It was started in the 1960s in Switzerland, and it's grown and grown and grown. And the two Linds, when they founded the school, there was not an IB World School that offered the diploma program to 11th and 12th graders and was publicly funded in the state of New Mexico. And now we're proud to be the largest public school in terms of its IB diploma student population. We have over 150 students in the program right now in the diploma program, but it's important to understand that IB is really school-wide. We're an IB school from 6th grade through 12th grade. And there's some things up here to consider when it comes to the outcomes of an IB curriculum and what we strive for. In particular, as it pertains to grades 6 through 10 and what they're getting ready for in grades 11 and 12. And I'm sure a lot of the people watching this stream or the recording of this stream have a prospective 6th grader or 7th grader, but some of you may be thinking about coming in as a high school student. And even if you're looking at 6th or 7th grade, we really are a 6 through 12 program, and it's important to think about what the end goal looks like for your child. So Cottonwood is proud to have nearly 100% graduation rate every year, 100% acceptance rate into four-year universities, and a big part of our students' preparation is the IB diploma program. And we have a combination of full diploma students and certificate students, and there's a lot to go through, but I wanted you to at least see this core mapping for what it is. Students take coursework in each of those 6 areas that you can see on the second circle in. That starts with studies in language and literature, and then it kind of goes around in a circle: individuals and societies, mathematics, arts, sciences, and language acquisition. And then they have a course called Core, where they work on a 4,000 word research paper called the extended essay. It is college level and in some cases graduate level in college, and they're doing this in 11th and 12th grade. There's creativity, activity, and service, also known as CAS, where students are doing those 3 things. So they're being creative, whether it be the arts or computer science, or any number of things that are creative pursuits for them. Activity is what it sounds like. You get your heart racing, you're doing sports, you're otherwise engaged in keeping yourself physically active, and in service. So whether it's at the school site or out in the community. And that's something that we start working on prior to 11th grade. So that's the diploma program. It's our core educational model for grades 11 and 12. And another aspect of being an IB World School is the IB Learner Profile. And so there's these 10 characteristics or traits that we try to focus on with our students. And if we think about the profile of a successful graduate, these are the 10 areas that we would consider. Of course, their coursework and their level of mastery is important, but who they are as a human being and how they will engage in society is equitably important, if not arguably more important. And so teachers engage with students in formative discussions around these topics to make sure that they are growing in these areas from grades 6 through 12. Okay, at this time, I'm going to introduce my colleague. We've got two assistant directors here, and the first one talking to you will be Mr. Ray Wong, who's going to talk to you about some aspects of student life on campus.
And so a day in the life of a CCPS student starts with the daily schedule. Currently this year, from Monday, Wednesday, and also Thursdays, um, we do have advisories and tutorials as well. On Mondays and Tuesdays, it covers periods 1 through 7, and then Wednesdays and Thursdays it covers also periods 1 through 7. The middle school lunch and high school lunch are separate, and so students won't be from middle school and also high school won't be eating lunch at the same time. On Fridays, for this year, we do have virtual Fridays in which it consists of office hours and also advisory and extra instructional time and staff PD time as well. However, for our 2022 and 23 school year schedule, there's likely going to be a change in terms of how Fridays are. In other words, we're considering having all 5 days of in-person learning for students for the upcoming school year. In terms of expectations, we have different expectations for staff, students, and parents, but the goal is for us to have a good environment for students to learn in. In terms of Cottonwood staff, for teachers and also staff members, students are first. We value strong communication between the students and also teachers and staff members. And also, there's a constant growth mindset for staff members to grow professionally as well. And that is achieved through the training that we provide for them. In terms of Cottonwood students, as mentioned by Mr. Bennett, the goal is for them to exemplify IB learner profiles. And so not only would they have strong communication skills, but they would also have to be great thinkers and also be open-minded to the ideas of other people as well. Finally, they need to have a growth mindset, meaning that the results are really important, but also the sort of growth that they 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 see throughout time as well. In terms of Cottonwood parents, again, we value communication with parents, and so we do want to work with parents in terms of supporting the students here. And we do hope that there is a great partnership that exists between the parents and staff members through great communication. In terms of dress code expectations, we expect students to wear polos Monday through Thursday. On Fridays, students can wear college gear and also CCPS spirit wear. The lanyard and with ID is required for all students on all days because for safety reasons, we need to be able to ID the students. In terms of expectations for behavior, as mentioned before, we want students to abide by the IB learner profiles, and also keep in mind the golden rule, which is, do to others what you treat others like you like to be treated. We value restorative practices, and so along with, let's say, meeting with students to, have them reflect on their actions when an infraction occurs. In certain cases, we have them take or be more involved in a program that is run through our counseling office, which is the BASE program. Our goal is to have a safe, consistent learning environment for all students. Um, One of the things that we value as a school is accepting Rachel's challenge, which is comprised of several components. The first component of Rachel's challenge essentially is to look for the best in others. Um, Secondly, dream big, and then thirdly, choose positive influences. Fourth, fourthly, speak with kindness, and fifth, start your own chain reaction. One of the things that I repeatedly, communicate with students about is they can make a positive impact on others. And so when we talk about chain reaction, just like in chemistry, each one of them has the ability and also the capability to make a difference for their their friends and peers as well. Finally, in terms of lockers, everyone gets one locker. Um, though many students don't use locks and lots of trust in our community, if the student would like to bring a lock to the school, that's totally okay. When I was in middle school and high school, I brought a lock to to school as well. And if the student would like to decorate the locker, that's totally okay. But it must be appropriate, and meet the expectations of the school.
Hello, I'm Carissa Petrie. I'm one of the school's assistant directors. So let's talk about the academics. In 6th and 7th grade, our students are in an accelerated curriculum. You really see it in math, but you also see it in their science class, in their English class. For example, in the 7th grade English class, the students read Lord of the Flies, which is in many schools read in high school. So we're prepping our students early for the IB program. In 7th grade, students are taking a formal pre-algebra class in preparation for the high school algebra class in 8th grade. In 6th and 7th grade, students have a variety of electives that they take, including technology, where especially in this day and age, students really need to understand how systems like Schoology and PowerSchool work so that they can access information, especially if we're not at school. There's guitar, there's theater, PE, visual arts, and the students are taking those classes for one semester each 6th through 7th grade. If students come to us in high school, then our registrar is going to need to do a credit check. Our 8th graders start taking high school level classes. And so in 8th grade, our students are taking Algebra 1, they're taking biology, advanced New Mexico history. They're taking a variety of high school level classes. And so that's in preparation for the IB program where they need to have those classes out of the way before they enter the IB program. So if students are coming to us after 8th grade, then there is some credit recovery that needs to be done so that they're ready for the IB program in 11th grade. Our school is a vibrant place with many, many different activities that students can do. They're co-curricular activities. We recognize them as being extremely important to our students' health and well-being and part of their development. So we have an active student government. We have a winning science Olympiad team. We have a yearbook with great yearbooks that they put out every year. Students are always clamoring to get into the yearbook. We have guitar. with an awesome guitar teacher that you may have seen playing around town. Social Action Club for those students that are interested in helping the world. Um, a newspaper. We have lots of sports. We have middle school sports teams, and then we have the high school NMAA teams that compete more at a more competitive level. And then you notice at the bottom that there's the custom. Well, our activities are not restricted to these activities. So, for example, I know that this year there was a class, a club called Craftivism. So, crafting and activism put together. There's a Pokemon club, um, Magic the Gathering. Now, I don't know that much about Magic the Gathering, but I hear from the kids that it's a lot of fun. Um, lots of game clubs, chess club, Dungeons and Dragons. We even have we have an esports team that has been very popular this year with our students. So we have a few times built into the schedule that allows students time to work independently, to go to clubs, to work with their teachers. So the first that I want to talk about is advisory. So this year, our advisory was at the beginning of the school day, the first 25 minutes of the school day, and students meet with their academic advisor on a daily basis. There's grade checks happening, a social emotional check-in, and just generally making sure that students understand what the expectations are. If anything is changing, advisors are going to point that out to their students and make sure that students understand what to do. So, for example, we have some construction happening on our campus right now. And so our buses are leaving the students at a different location, and they're picking up students at a different location. And so advisors really made sure that our students understood where to go and when to be there, so they wouldn't miss their bus, or they wouldn't, let their parents know something that was incorrect. So advisors are really great about helping the school to put out information and making sure that students understand that information. And then we have our study hall. So our students in grades 6 through 10 have one dedicated study hall per 7 periods, and they have that time with with one of our regular teachers, and there's time for them to do work, to have questions answered by that teacher that's working with them. Most students find it very helpful because the academics at Cottonwood are very intensive, and so students need that time built into their schedule to get a little bit more work done. As we talked about, there's clubs built into the schedule. So this year we had clubs twice a week. It may not be quite as much next year, but we do have clubs, and then there's after school clubs. And so that's just time for students to really work on something that they love. We had a lot of students participate in the choir club this year. I know my own daughter loved the choir club. They performed really well, and it was mixed grades. So the older students were helping the younger students, and it was very impressive. And kids need that after a long day of school. They need that creative outlet. At Cottonwood, we have a counselor and a social worker. So Miss Garnond is the picture at the top. She's our social worker. And then Miss Stafford is our counselor. And they are both available full-time to our student body. Our social worker specifically works with our special ed population in addition to working with the rest of the student body. They help guide the SEL programming for advisory. So we use a program called BASE, and so they are always consistently checking to see if there's anything that they need to check in with students regarding BASE responses, and they really are there as a support for our families as well. And so if families have a question about their students, they need questions answered about social emotional issues, our counselor and our social worker are wonderful people to start with. They have lots of resources. They know the community really well, and they know the resources available in the Albuquerque area. They also help guide some of our programs that students can participate in that involve social emotional learning. So one of the really great programs that we have at Cottonwood is the Natural Helpers. And so we have teachers that sponsor Natural Helpers, but our counselor and our social worker work with those groups to make sure that they have the skills they need to be helpers to their fellow students. We have some clubs that also provide SEL support to students. So the Gay Straight Alliance, we have RAPS, and then like Mr. Wang talked about, the Friends of Rachel. So Cottonwood Classical is a public school, and we honor all IEPs and 504s. This year we piloted a small group 6th and 7th grade math class and an English language arts class. And so those are classes that are fewer than 15 students, and the curriculum is going to match up with the curriculum in the regular 6th and 7th grade classes, but the classes are smaller and there's some differentiation happening in those classes to help our students that learn differently. There's IEP accommodations in all regular education classes. We have lots of students with gifted IEPs, and so those students also sometimes have specific needs that we accommodate. And then for our students that are currently, for our incoming students that are currently on an IEP, Ms. Geertz, our registrar, will talk about the process for making sure that that IEP is moved into our system so that we're prepared to service our students with IEPs when they get to Cottonwood. In addition to our special ed program, we also honor all 504s, which we have. Actually, I am the person that administers the 504s, and so if you have a 504 coming into Cottonwood, you're going to just submit that paperwork. And if you find that there's some kind of medical or learning issue that can be serviced by a 504, then we can help you with that process of getting the 504 in place so that there are accommodations for learning. If students are in the SAT process, so that's a student assistance team. So if your student is currently in the SAT process, that paperwork should transfer to Cottonwood as well so that we can continue on with the SAT process. Make sure that students have correct interventions so that they are learning and growing. Our interventions at Cottonwood for math, language usage, and reading are done using the Edmentum Exact Path program, which is a research-based program that is individualized using the NWEA MAP scores that we collect several times throughout the school year. And so if students show that they have a need to have some gaps filled with their learning, we'll place them in the intervention classes. And then as far as intervention tracking, what that means is that our teachers are constantly collecting data on students, and they track that data to see if students perhaps need more support, or maybe they need less support. Maybe they're doing well with the supports that are already in place for the whole school. And so that's what that intervention tracking means. Okay, and I'd like to hand back the presentation to Mr. Binnert at this time.
All right. Hello again. I want to thank you for getting active in the chat. one of the huge benefits to watching this live is that you get to have your individualized questions answered. So please keep it up. Ask anything and everything. There's no way we can prepare a presentation that won't put you to sleep, that answers every question. So keep throwing them at us, and I will talk about something really exciting here, which is the future here at CCPS and what we're building, what's going on, and what your child can look forward to. So you might have seen in the news this weekend or maybe in the paper yesterday, but we're pretty busy here with facilities. So we have just broken ground on a 24,000 square foot addition to our 47,000 square foot main building. There will be a black box theater, a full-size gymnasium that we can host our home sporting events and large-scale concerts, for example, with guitar. We'll have an actual music classroom, and I know there's some questions about music in the chat. We are going to be working toward rebuilding an IB music program on top of everything that's mentioned there. There's a new health office coming, a counseling suite, so in reference to some of the things that we discussed, just facilities improvements. And shortly thereafter, our library, which you can see we're in right now, and here's the background, will be opening in a roughly 2,200 square foot room. It's currently in a 350 square foot room, so much larger. Technology lab, and we'd like to grow our computer science and technology program further and more. We know that's the way of the world, and many, many students are interested in computer science and engineering. And we're making some of our high school classrooms larger. This school in the early years would often have high school classes that were pretty small, and now they are still relatively small compared to your typical high school. But we want to make sure that our students and teachers have adequate space to do their learning. And then after that, we've got some other focuses. So a large multi-purpose field where our state champion cross-country teams and high-performing track and field teams can do their practices and get more involved, and our soccer team can practice, and that our students at lunchtime and passing periods and things like that just have a nice, comfortable place to run around and feel like they are on a school campus all the time. And then we'll be looking at additional improvements, possibly a second building and structure that's separate from the existing building. So there's a lot of growth happening. And this next slide has an image to kind of show what I was just talking about with the addition, and then with the library, tech lab, and additional high school classrooms. So you can sort of see the existing building on top, and it might be hard depending on what size screen you're watching this on, but you can always pause this later with the recording and zoom in a little bit. That addition at the bottom with the gymnasium, you can see the black box next to it, locker rooms, all sorts of things. A student commons area that's as large as some houses for students to be able to kind of have a comfortable place to get together before school, after school, at lunchtime, things like that. So very, very exciting. It's happening now. If you drive by campus, you can see the construction fencing and get a feel for what the campus looks like right now. There are different ways for parents to get involved in supporting the school into the future and on a daily basis. So some just quick things I wanted to share on that. We have the Cottonwood Classical Foundation. It's a 501c3 that exists to serve Cottonwood, our students, our parents, our growth, everything. So they have a capital campaign ongoing right now to help raise funds for the completion of all that project I just talked about. Although the project is happening no matter what, it'd be nice to have all the funding we need for fixtures, furniture, audio, visual equipment, lighting packages, things like that really help it feel completed. So the foundation is really important for that purpose, and they're pretty much always looking for additional volunteerism. Another one is our parent-teacher organization. The current president is Davine Sanchez, and they support a big part of our lunch program. So as Mrs. Petrie discussed, we do have a lunch program currently that is free, but we also have this PTO sponsored lunch program where vendors will bring in food from different locations around the city. and it's available for purchase ahead of time. They also get involved in supporting some of our clubs and teachers and the well-being of our staff and making sure that everybody feels supported on a regular basis. So they're kind of the day-to-day support organization, the PTO. And then we have the Parent Advisory Council. Pretty much every charter school in the state of New Mexico has this. They get involved with policy revisions, suggestions for improvement with different programming in school calendar, things like that. And both the Parent Advisory Council and the Parent Teacher Organization have a representative that sit on the CCPS Governing Council, which is effectively our school board that gets involved in things. One of the things that I want to mention before we go on to the application and lottery process is that people ask me a lot if we're part of APS or not, because it can be a little bit confusing. So we are an APS authorized charter school, which means that Albuquerque Public Schools for 5 years at a time issues a charter to us and keeps us in existence in that way. For some things, we are beholden to their policies and practices, but for most things, we are not. We're still able to create our own policies and guidelines for the most part, as long as we are in compliance with the Public Education Department and our own governing council approves of those policies. Before I kick it over to Ms. Jackie Geertz, our registrar, who will talk about the admissions process, I just want to reiterate to keep those chat questions coming. You can see a lot of them are being answered live, and then we will answer more of them just this way that I'm doing now at the end of the admission section. So now I will bring up Jackie Geertz.
Good evening. I'm Jackie Geertz, and I am the registrar here at Cottonwood, and I oversee the lottery and enrollment process. So most of you are probably here tonight to find out about our lottery and how we handle applications, siblings, how many we pull in each grade level, all of those questions. So we'll start out with the really important information, and that is when the lottery opens. So the lottery application will open on February 1st at 9 a.m. and the link will be located on our website under admissions so that you can just click on it. It does not matter when you complete the application, so you don't have to, run in and try to beat everybody else. You have until February 28th at 4 p.m. to get your application in. You do need to place an application for every student that you would like to possibly attend Cottonwood next year. So if you have 3 children and 2 of them you want at Cottonwood, but one you're uncertain of, make sure you place an application for that uncertain one, because then if your children do get pulled in the lottery, then you can make that decision for that child. If you have not put an application in, then that one child will not be allowed to attend Cottonwood next year. So if there's any question, put an application in, because you can always turn down the offer. The lottery will actually be run on March 18th at 9 a.m. It will be virtual. And it's a very quick process, and you will be notified by 6 p.m. on the 18th that where you're if you've been selected and you're being offered a spot or wait list status. So you will get all of that information emailed to you on the 18th. The application is a very short application. Everybody always wants to know if they have to write an essay. No. You have to answer 5 or 6 questions. It's a pretty simple application, and you just fill all the information in and submit it, and we do the rest. If you have multiple births, you will only be placing one application in the lottery, but you will be putting all of the multiple births as twins, triplets on that one application. Any other children you have that are not twins or triplets or quadruplets, then you must place an application for each student into the lottery for next year for them to be considered. So a couple of things to just remember about the lottery. You want to use an email that you have access to 7 days a week, because as we pull in throughout the summer, you might get an email sent to you on a Friday afternoon, and you want to be able to see that offer prior to Monday at 9 a.m., and you may only have till 11 a.m. on Monday to accept that offer. So make sure that whatever email you use is an email that you have access to 7 days a week, and that will be the email that you are using through October. Please do not call the school with lottery questions, particularly after the lottery has been run. Please email all questions to the ccps.lottery@cottonwoodclassical.org email. We will get them answered much quicker through the email than if you try to call the school. So please put all of your questions in an email and send them to us through the lottery email. I know a lot of you have asked and are wondering, how many do we pull per grade? We never know. So during the lottery application process, we will also be running an intent to return for our current students and any eligible incoming siblings. Incoming eligible siblings in 6th grade that have a current sibling going to Cottonwood do grandfather in. So we have to find out how many eligible siblings we have coming in and also how many of our students are returning. And this is how we pull our numbers for the lottery. We usually are looking at 125 seats per grade level. So it just it all depends on how many kids are returning. That also can change. We know in summertime when school ends, families are transferred, families move. So there are always seats that may be opening up. And that's why I said we're always pulling off the wait list. So we will pull throughout the whole summer. And even once school starts, if a seat becomes available. And we usually pull through September into the very first part of October. So even if your child is not pulled in the initial lottery, does not mean that they don't have an opportunity to possibly be pulled in off the wait list. We do work under the state lottery sibling rule for the lottery, and that states that as long as a sibling has an application in this year's lottery, if you have 3 children that you've put in 3 applications for, 1 child gets pulled, the other 2 move to the top of the wait list for that grade level that they're applying for. And they will be considered next when a seat becomes available. They do not automatically get pulled in, but they do move to the top of the wait list. And then as seats become available, we look at that list first. Let me see, I'm going down this. If you receive an offer and accept it, you will be sent a registration form electronically. At that time, you will be asked to upload some documents that we will be needing. So this is just kind of a heads up that, if you were to get pulled in the lottery and you're filling out that registration, if you have those forms available, then you're one step ahead of everybody else. You will need shot records, You will need any school, report cards, transcripts, particularly at the high school level. We will need IEPs, 504s. Those are just a few of the things that we're definitely going to be asking you for. So if you have them available when you are completing the registration packet, if you get pulled into the lottery or pulled through the lottery and accept, then you would have those on hand and be ahead of the game. I think that pretty much covers everything. Again, use the ccps.lottery email for all questions. Remember, the email is most important because that is the email that we will correspond with you throughout the entire process. So make sure that is an email that you have access to at all times. Every student must have an application placed within the time frame that the lottery application is open, which again, February 1st at 9 a.m. is when our application window opens. It closes on February 28th at 4 p.m. and our virtual lottery draw will be March 18th at 9 a.m. I wish you all the very best of luck. Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes the structured and pre-prepared portion of the presentation. What we're going to do at this time is we're going to pause for about 3 minutes and just let you all throw more questions into the chat box, and then we'll start answering them live. So in addition to what we're putting in the chat box, we'll answer those questions right here, either myself or Ms. Geertz or one of the two assistant directors, depending on the nature of the question. So I'm just going to mute our video here, and we'll give you the next few minutes to put any questions you have in the chat.
Hi, everyone. There's two questions in the chat box that I just wanted to touch on. The first one is, are there additional requirements for kids coming from homeschool? As long as the homeschool was an accredited homeschool and that you can produce an accredited transcript, then we work off of that transcript. If it is not an accredited homeschool and there is not a transcript, then it's a whole different ball game that would take all night to talk about. So if that is a situation, then we would have to have a conversation, once your child was pulled in the lottery. We do accept homeschool, but there are a couple of different things that we have to look at. But we do take transcripts from accredited homeschool programs and then work off of those credits to see where your child is at that time credit-wise. The other one is, if you were selected on the 18th, how long do you have to fill out the acceptance? Initially, right after the lottery, you will receive 5 days to accept your position that has been offered to you. After the first run through the lottery, then the time gets shortened. And it continues to get shorter and shorter and shorter the closer you get to, August. So you'll get 5 days initially, then you'll start to get 4 days, and then we'll get closer, you'll get 3 days, then you get 2 days, then you get 24 hours. And from about July, mid-July, end of July usually, on, you're at about a 24-hour run on accepting. And if we do not hear, then we roll to the next wait list student. And the reason that we do that is because here at Cottonwood, we strongly believe that we want our children in school when school starts. And if you look at our calendar, we start before APS starts. And so our goal is to have all of our kids in classes on the first day of school. And if they're coming in late, then we want as few coming in late as possible. And so that is why we roll to the 24-hour acceptance once we get close to school starting, because we need to immediately be rolling over and getting these kids in school. So we do that because we find that it is a huge benefit for the kids to be able to start here as close to the beginning of the school year as possible. If any other questions come up before we're done with this evening, I'll try to answer those. But I'm going to turn it over to one of my other colleagues to answer some more questions that are in the chat box.
And I can just scroll. All right, thank you for your questions. So we wanted to make sure that we're trying to answer your questions comprehensively. So let me look through the chat and see where I might be able to answer some of your questions. Okay, so there's a good bus question from Monica. Can students ride different buses on different days of the week? Okay, so it looks like that was answered yes, and just communicate that with our school and our bus drivers. All right. Let's see, there's a really good question from Teresa. I am glad to hear you promote a growth mindset. Can you offer some examples of how you do this? So part of the way that we really naturally do this at Cottonwood is that our students are taking challenging classes, and they're taking challenging classes from 6th grade on. And then sometimes our students struggle in these classes. And so they have to get comfortable with that struggle and figuring out how they can improve their performance and how they can get the most out of their learning. And so that doesn't always look like an A plus type of report card. Sometimes it looks like a B, but a B that was hard earned and that a student really learned a lot in that particular class. And so we really celebrate learning at Cottonwood rather than high grades. One of the ways that we celebrate our different types of students and our students that excel in different ways is that we have our IB Learner Profile Trait Awards at the end of the year. So, for example, we have students that are awarded for being balanced people. And so, for example, those students really understand the work-life balance and they really demonstrate that at school and to their peers. And so, we really I feel like that in that way we really celebrate the growth mindset and we really urge students to be the best people that they can be. Lewis asked a question: what theater activities can sixth graders participate in? So this year we have a Frozen Junior theater production that is currently it's looking for actors, and so that's for our younger students. And we've had musical theater performances this year, and kids are able to participate in those clubs. And then there's a theater class this year for our sixth grade students. All right. Let's see. So I do see some questions about the first day of school. So Lewis asked again, what is the first day of school in August 2022? So we don't have our calendar solidified yet, but I would say that it is generally at the very, very beginning of August. So you can plan for that. Okay, and I see some other great questions that our other assistant director can answer. So I'm going to turn it over to him.
And so there are three questions that I would like to answer. I think one of them deals with the type of computer science courses that are offered here. We do offer classes that has to do with computer science in middle school. For instance, our teacher teaches students to use the Piper's kit, which has to do with assembling the hardware and also getting students involved in understanding what the software is for a very basic computer. Um, in 10th grade, there are, I think, dual credit class for computer science as well that our technology coordinator teaches to 10th graders. Um, Now, in terms of the question that has to do with the curriculum used for math, I would say that starting from 6th grade through 10th grade, um, every grade level math class, the curriculum is aligned with the state standards. Um, and it's very clear from the sort of curriculum maps that we have for the subject. When students go to 11th and 12th grade, they will be learning math according to the IB standards, which really are, college level math standards, dealing with calculus, and other areas as well. Um, in terms of the last question I wanted to answer, it has to do with what type of restorative practices do we have or are implemented at our school. And so, in terms of restorative practices, what we try to do is help students really focus on reflecting what their motivations are and the type of impact that their actions have towards their peers. And so we have reflection forms and also reflective discussion, let's say conversations with students when they come see me. Um, Part of the restorative practices that we have here is, you know, helping students manage and also rebuilding the relationship that, you know, that might have been damaged from, you know, certain actions that they've taken. And so um, one of the things that we do is, you know, we help students reflect on what they did, and then think about ways that can, you know, sort of mend the relationship that, you know, that has been, let's say, damaged with their peers. Our counselor also works very closely with students with through the base program that we have, so that they are ready to come back to school after, you know, certain consequences have been issued and so forth. Um, the, the goal here is for them to be able to restore their relationship with their peers. Um, and so I'm gonna let Mr. Bennett talk about the answers to some of the questions that are left in the chat box right now. Thank you.
All right, hello again. I'll be batting cleanup this evening. So my goal will be to try to answer the questions that haven't been answered. So I'm going to go in reverse order just because it's a little easier for me to not miss things, and then I'll, at the end, go back to the bottom and see if there are some new questions. So the most recent question I see is from Jacqueline saying, what is the last day of school generally? So it has been recently the first Friday in June. So we typically start the first Monday in August, which next year is August 1st, which is about as early as it can be. The good news is the year after that, it would probably be about August 6th, so a little bit later. And we go to the first Friday in June. However, our students get more than a week off for both fall break and spring break. They work pretty hard, so we like to try to give them some breaks, and the same is true for our teachers. So that can give you a pretty good sense. College dual credit. So we're not a dual credit school. That's not a model we're built on. But what is very, very important to make sure is clear from the onset is that the IB courses, you get college credit when you enter college. So you take the courses, you sit for the exams, and we've had students start as sophomores in college. It depends a lot on what school they go to, but it tends to be just as good, if not better, in terms of credits than what students would get by doing early dual credit. And it is much more genuinely challenging and preparatory for college, especially for four-year universities. So our preference would be that students do the IB courses. It doesn't mean that no students do dual credit, but it is seen as an extra thing, and it's not part of our core programming for dual credit. Okay, continuing to work. Does Common Classical require teachers and staff to be vaccinated? So for this question, I'll go back to the authorization and the rules we have to follow. So there's a New Mexico Public Education Department toolkit. It is publicly available on their website. It includes the requirements for schools with reopening and COVID safe practices. And that is where we get our guidance for things like this. So we do not require our teachers to be vaccinated. However, teachers who have not provided proof of vaccination, in fact, all staff members who have not provided proof of vaccination, have to be surveillance tested every single week. So they are tested on a weekly basis if they are not fully vaccinated. So continuing to work up here. So bilingual courses, Spanish, I see a lot of things about that. So at this point in time, we've reintroduced Spanish in grades 6 and 7. We've just started to reintroduce it. It's something that Cottonwood did early on. As an IB World school, language acquisition is vitally important. So we had some years where we didn't start Spanish until 8th grade. And for our students who come from Cienaguas or New Mexico International School, or other bilingual schools, and also for our heritage speaking students where they've grown up in a Spanish speaking household, starting in the same way as peers that have Spanish as their second language, we know that that's not the best fit. So we are in the process of really building an authentic heritage track. Something to understand as an IB school, when students reach 11th and 12th grade, as it shows in the chat, we have Spanish and French in the IB for students to potentially graduate relatively fluent in Spanish or conversational in French, or both. We do have students who occasionally will do both Spanish and French. Um, if we have enough students, we also can offer what's called language A, and I'll summarize it by saying that students can take Spanish at the same level that they would take English, in addition to taking English. That is a possibility for them in grades 11 and 12. So if your child is bilingual coming into our school, our job is to continue to support them to the degree we can, and then in 11th and 12th grade, work to support them to potentially get a bilingual IB diploma, which is a really impressive thing that not a whole lot of students in the world graduate high school with. So that's an ongoing programmatic thing that we are building and addressing. Okay, and then I can see what curriculums are used for math and English. So it's interesting, the question. I appreciate the question a lot, because we are beholden to Common Core and state standards for math and English language arts, right? And we have the IB program in grades 11 and 12 diploma program, so we need to make sure that our students are ready for that. The curriculum we use in math and English is custom because we have to take the standards that must be met at a minimum, and we have an accelerated course trajectory, as Mrs. Petrie was talking about, to make sure that all of our students are prepared for 11th and 12th grade, where there are two different levels of math, both of which at least introduce calculus, and both of which include quite a bit of statistics. The manner and depth of those two courses is a little bit different. One is more applied, has a lot more statistics, uses a lot more technology. The other is more of what some of you would consider a pure math approach, designed for those going into math, science, engineering fields. So getting them ready means making sure that they get to Algebra 1 in 8th grade. And if they're not ready for Algebra 1 in 8th grade, that we kind of have a plan B for them to make sure that they're still ready for the sort of applied math course in grades 11 and 12. So there's a lot of inquiry-based stuff. It's Paideia, and it's accelerated. It is the best way to describe it for math. In English, we teach things like dialectical journals and how to write a paragraph where you're citing the text that you're reading. Students learn to annotate really well in middle school, so that they get novels, they write in them, they have seminars all the time, they're writing about what they're reading, including in 6th grade, and they have to cite evidence from the text that they're reading. So very customized for English, math, and several other subjects. History and geography I see here as well. So it is a little bit different from a typical school because we have to do high school credits in 8th grade. So a lot of schools would do 6th grade as like ancient civilizations, which we do the same thing. And then in 7th grade often is New Mexico history, but for us it's actually early US history in 7th grade. A lot of primary source work in that class. And then in 8th grade, we do early New Mexico history for a semester, and then our students take high school health for a semester because we need to start getting them high school credits. And I can't say this enough. They have 4 to 5 high school credits completed at the end of 8th grade at our school. So coming in after 8th grade, usually students have some credit recovery work to do. And then continuing on history and geography, 9th grade is a world history course. 10th grade is US history, post-Civil War, so Reconstruction era through modern day. And also in 10th grade, we have a government and economics course that I know is the best in the state. There's a curriculum called We the People that we even have some students compete with it. And then 11th and 12th grade, they get some choice. So 11th and 12th grade, they can do philosophy, psychology, they can go in depth with history. There's an environmental science and society course. so they get some options in 11th and 12th grade. I see a question about homework. So, and there was another question that was answered about grading practices. So teachers in our school, we believe in autonomy and accountability with teachers. So they're following the mission and they're teaching in the spirit of our best practices. There's some autonomy there with the way they set up grading. And with homework, the most important thing is to be aware. Like what did the National Association of School Psychologists say? They say roughly 10 minutes per night times the grade level you're in. So a sixth grader really should not have more than an hour of homework in an evening when you compile everything, right? And I'd say as a parent of a sixth grader, that seems to be pretty true. There's not a tremendous amount of homework if students are using their time during the school day well, and that is an important distinction. By 11th and 12th grade with the IB program, I would say that you're looking more at the 2 hours, maybe 3 hours on a busy night. But that's for a student that's full diploma and doesn't really have a lot of study hall time. So it's going to depend a little bit on that menu of courses that the student is doing and how much time they have during the school day to get some things done. I know the computer science and theater classes were answered. I think I answered a lot of those ones. Let me go back to the bottom. Science, yes. Science. Sixth grade is Earth and Space Science. Seventh grade is Life Science. Eighth grade, they're doing a high school biology. So there's your first science credit for high school. Ninth grade is Physics. 10th grade is Chemistry. And then in 11th and 12th grade, there's some choice. So we have an IB biology course that's offered at a high level and standard level. The high level, going back to the dual credit thing, a high level biology, if the student does well, there are many universities that give 8 college credits for high school biology. Many universities. So that can give you a sense. We've got physics at the 11th and 12th grade level. We now also have chemistry and an environmental science course. I think those are the current questions I'm seeing. Did I miss anything, team? Okay, yeah. So I was just reminded about a common question that comes up as students reach 11th and 12th grade. If they don't want to do IB, is there another option? The answer is no, because we're an IB school. The courses we offer in 11th and 12th grade are all going to be IB diploma courses. That does not mean that every student has to be full diploma. So they don't have to do 6 courses and a full 6 courses along with their core. So we have some seniors, for example, that have 5 classes out of the 7 periods because they're okay on graduation requirements and they're not full diploma. So that's just something to keep in mind. Transportation options. So earlier in the chat we mentioned this, but I'll say it here. Buses. So we have, depending on the year, between 7 and 8 buses that APS Transportation provides for to and from transportation. We have at least one bus stop in every quadrant of the city. And you can see the link posted in the chat or look on our website to get the most up-to-date bus schedule. It changes a little bit every year, but the goal is to make sure that all of our students can ride the bus if they need or want to ride the bus. And then we have typical parent drop-off and pickup procedures as well. And we have the option for students to stay here on campus as late as 5:30 Monday through Thursday, so that parents, if they would like, can pick up their child here at school a little bit later and let them get some more work done on campus. Okay, and student drivers, I don't know how many of you have a child that would be driving, but we try to guarantee spots for seniors as long as they do the paperwork that we ask of them in July. So that's the first goal. And then for other high school drivers, there's a limited number of spots. So it's kind of a first come, first serve after the seniors have been accounted for. We cannot guarantee a parking spot for every student that drives. Okay, so there's a question here about the violence at Washington Middle School last August. Has your school had to address such events? Thankfully, no. This Cottonwood has historically really not had a whole lot of violent acts to deal with. Um, it's pretty infrequent that we even have students that are pushing each other around at all. And most of the time that we've seen this year, it's because they're all trying to, middle school kids, all trying to come in the building very quickly at the same time instead of giving some space and separation. That's the most common physical issue that we have. We don't have a whole lot of tolerance for students treating one another with disrespect. And we have a director of safety and security. We have what we call our coyote team, which is a group of staff members that respond very quickly in the event of any particular incident. And it's a pretty highly trained group when it comes to intervention training. Right, I'm just scrolling through here some more to see if there's other questions coming through or things that I missed. I don't see any. Team, anything else that hasn't come up? Do you think we should address? Okay. Oh yes, so the homework one. So I did answer the homework one, but it really in grades 6 and 7, the goal is to average at the most an hour, but students do have time during the day in middle school to work on some of their homework. So they really should not be bringing home very much. If they are, I would question them about how they use their independent time at school, because there is some time for them to do that work. Okay, I will leave you all with gratitude. Thank you for attending the live recording of this particular event. And I'll ask someone, maybe our communications person can put this in the chat, a link to the signups for school tours. As I said at the beginning, we normally would do the info night and tours at the same time. That's when we could have hundreds of people on campus at the same time. So what we will do is over the next 4 Fridays, we have some sign-up slots where we can have smaller groups come in, and we'll have students leading tours to bring your child around, show you the campus, answer additional questions that might come up. And it's a really good way to learn more about the school or think about things that you might not have thought to ask here. So again, thank you for being here. We appreciate you. And as you get into the application process, you can always email that CCPS lottery email address that we referenced earlier and is on the website. All right, thank you.